A vast alien empire known as the Combine conquered Earth in the 7-hour war through overwhelming force and advanced technology. In a matter of hours, they devastated the planet's defenses, tearing cities apart with orbital projectiles and deploying legions of synthetic war beasts to crush Earth's armies. After humanity's surrender, the Combine established a rigid command structure to rule the occupied planet. At the top sits the shadowy Combine advisors, slug-like alien overlords who oversee Earth's occupation. They installed former Black Mesa administrator Dr. Wallace Breen as a public figurehead, the interim administrator, but true authority rests with the advisors and the Combine's AI-driven command network. From the towering citadel in City 17, one of many massive Combine fortresses, orders flow downward to every level of their forces. The citadel in City 17 served not only as Sector 17 HQ, but as the Combine's central nerve center on Earth, a monolithic symbol of their absolute authority. At the operational level, an entity called Overwatch, voiced in HL2 by a cold, female announcer, coordinates all military units. This centralized AI issues orders, status reports, and tactical updates in an emotionless monotone, keeping every unit tightly integrated. The Overwatch voice directs everything from ground patrols to synth deployments, ensuring the Combine's doctrine of total control is executed to the letter. The Combine military on Earth, aptly named the Combine Overwatch, is organized into divisions by region, sectors, with City 17's Sector 17 Overwatch being the largest and most heavily garrisoned. Overwatch forces are stratified. At the bottom, civil protection handles local policing. Above them, Transhuman Overwatch soldiers form the bulk of the military, and elite synthetic units and advisors occupy the highest tiers of command. Notably, Overwatch elite soldiers are often assigned squad leadership roles, and in rare cases we hear references to ranks, such as Leader 9, when command shifts due to casualties. This suggests a strict hierarchy even among field units, with promotion or demotion dispensed instantly by Overwatch if a leader falls in battle. The Combine's doctrine blends Orwellian oppression with cold military efficiency. Their rule is characterized by brutal authoritarian control over civilians and a relentless pursuit of any resistance. Cities have been turned into dystopian police states where constant surveillance, propaganda broadcasts, and draconian laws keep people in fear. The Combine enforce compliance through a mix of carrot and stick. Citizens who cooperate might receive extra rations or small privileges, while dissenters are labelled anti-citizens and face swift, horrific punishment. Public beatings, summary executions, and relocations to grim detention centres, like Nova Prospect, are routine. The worst fates are reserved for those who actively oppose the regime. These unfortunates are often consigned to brutal human processing, literally having their humanity stripped away to serve the Combine, either as brainwashed soldiers or mutilated stalkers, as discussed later. Philosophically, the Combine justify their dominion with a twisted vision of evolution. In official propaganda, the Breen casts, Dr. Breen extols the Combine as benefactors uplifting humanity to the next step in its evolution. He speaks of technological immortality and unity with the vast Combine empire, a chilling promise that masks the loss of freedom and self. This doctrine of subsuming species into the Combine collective is core to their strategy across worlds. On Earth, it meant transforming human society. Our armies, technology, and even biology were co-opted. The Combine drained Earth's oceans and strip-mined resources for their interdimensional war machine, while forcibly integrating human beings into their military hierarchy. Under Combine rule, even reproduction was curtailed via a suppression field that prevented human fertility, a doctrine of total biological control to ensure the population remained stagnant and subservient. Yet for all its might, the Combine command structure has an Achilles heel. It is extremely centralized and methodical. They value order, planning, and overwhelming force, but show less adaptability in the face of chaos. As one account notes, the Combine are so immense they are slow to wake, requiring great effort and time to mobilize their vast power. This rigidity would be tested by Earth's scrappy resistance, which found ways to exploit delays and blind spots in the Combine's doctrine. Nonetheless, at the outset of their rule, the Combine's command structure and brutal doctrine made them seem invincible, a perfectly regimented hierarchy executing an alien vision of domination. The Civil Protection Units, often called Metro Cops or simply CPs, are the Combine's ubiquitous street-level enforcers. They function as a Gestapo-like police force in the cities, responsible for day-to-day suppression of the civilian populace. Unlike other Overwatch units, Civil Protection Officers are ordinary human collaborators, not surgically modified. Their indoctrination is psychological rather than physical. They have willingly joined the Combine in exchange for privileges, better food, living quarters, authority over fellow citizens, and even hinted rewards, such as the elusive promise of non-mechanical reproduction simulation as a form of sexual or leisure favour. In the bleak world of City 17, these incentives are powerful. As one cynical citizen remarks, "I'm ready to join Civil Protection just to get a decent meal." Thus, Civil Protection is built on a foundation of betrayal and desperation, humans policing humans to curry favour with their alien overlords. Civil Protection Officers present a faceless, intimidating image. They wear grey-blue uniforms with modest ballistic vests, combat boots, and armbands marked with city identifiers, C17 for City 17. Most distinctive is their white gas mask, which has an inset vocoder and radio that distort their voice into a harsh, metallic rasp. These masks serve both practical and symbolic purposes. They filter air and possibly suppress pheromones, since CPs often handle headcrab-infested areas. And they dehumanize the officers, concealing any recognizable identity or emotion behind bug-eyed lenses. The masks tie into the Overwatch surveillance network. They can display images relayed from flying city scanners to perform immediate facial recognition of suspects. A Civil Protection unit can literally see a scanner's photo of you on their HUD seconds after it's taken, making hiding in the city nearly impossible. Armed initially with stun batons and 9mm sidearms, USP match pistols, CPs are equipped for intimidation and crowd control, not heavy combat. They revel in using the electrified baton to inflict pain on unruly citizens. Indeed, brutalizing unarmed civilians is virtually part of the job description. Undercover operative Barney Calhoun joked he was way behind on his beating quota, reflecting how routine and sanctioned the violence is. When situations escalate, CPs can draw from a small arsenal of heavier weapons, compact MP-7 submachine guns, pump-action shotguns in dire circumstances, or mountable emplacement guns for checkpoint defense. They also carry handheld flares, not only for light, but to call for backup by firing a flare into the sky. A flare sighting can summon additional CP squads, or even Overwatch soldiers if a threat exceeds the Metro Cop's pay grade. Civil Protection operates in squads, usually patrolling in pairs or small groups in urban areas. They are the first responders to any disturbance, conducting random apartment raids, manning checkpoints, and chasing down curfew breakers. In combat, their training and tactics are rudimentary. They will take cover when shot at or while reloading, and they attempt basic bounding maneuvers. One covers while another advances. Their coordination is limited, however, especially compared to the true Combine soldiers. The Overwatch AI feeds CPs continuous instructions via radio. You can often hear the dispatcher's distorted directives. Remaining units contain, inquire, prepare for final prosecution, but CPs sometimes seem overwhelmed by the information. They tend to telegraph their moves with constant chatter. Observant rebels learn to use this to their advantage, hearing CPs coming before they see them. If injured or outmatched, a CP squad's instinct is to call for Overwatch reinforcement rather than employ clever strategy. One common tactic is flushing out hiding foes by deploying manhacks, compact aerial drones with whirring blades that buzz into rooms and force enemies into the open. Civil Protection carries, and deploys manhacks frequently during urban sweeps. The sight of a CP unlatching a suitcase-sized carrier and releasing a sawblade drone into a ventilation shaft is enough to make any fugitive scramble. Another method is the liberal use of gas grenades, not seen in-game, but referenced in pre-release materials and evidenced by their gas masks. On the battlefield, civil protection units are, frankly, cannon fodder when facing armed rebels or aliens. Lacking augmentations, they can be killed as easily as any human soldier. The Combine seem to treat them as expendable placeholders, useful for patrolling and keeping civilians cowed, but quickly supplanted by true Overwatch soldiers in any serious combat scenario. This was evident during the City 17 uprising. At the first sign of a large-scale rebellion, civil protection virtually vanished from the streets as heavier forces took over. In episode 1, for instance, Barney comments that many Metro cops are having second thoughts about fighting Gordon Freeman and are trying to desert the city instead of resisting the evacuation. Near the game's finale, a cluster of civil protection officers seemingly attempts to hijack an escape train, possibly prioritizing their own survival over duty. This shows that beneath the mask, civil protection are ultimately just people, often mediocre, self-serving people at that. Their commitment to the Combine's cause can falter when self-preservation kicks in. Civil protection serves as the Combine's blunt instrument of local control. Mall cops with assault rifles, corrupted by small privileges, and unleashed to terrorize their fellow humans. Their presence speaks to the Combine's strategy of using collaborationist forces to handle low-level threats. It's a clever economy of force. Why waste elite soldiers on policing a crowd when a human turncoat with a stun baton will do? Of course, when those crowds turn into an armed uprising, civil protection quickly finds itself out of its depth, and that's when the Combine unleashes the true horrors of its transhuman military. When brute force is needed, the Combine turns to its Overwatch soldiers, the hardened transhuman shock troops that form the backbone of its military. These soldiers were once human, but have been transformed through extreme surgical and cybernetic augmentation into something beyond human, and also less than human. In the aftermath of the 7-Hour War, the Combine began assimilating human survivors into its forces. At facilities like Nova Prospect and the Citadel itself, captives undergo a gruesome conversion process. Invasive surgery to implant cybernetics and armour, biochemical conditioning to enhance strength or dull pain, and memory replacement to erase loyalty to humanity. The end product is an Overwatch soldier, sometimes called a Combine soldier by citizens, an obedient infantry unit that will kill its own kind without hesitation. They are described in Combine communications as stabilization delegates, reflecting their role in stabilizing, i.e. pacifying, dissident populations. As Dr. Breen candidly put it in one of his broadcasts, if the transhuman forces are to prove themselves an indispensable augmentation to the Combine Overwatch, they will have to earn the privilege. This implies the Combine is constantly evaluating the performance of its converted human soldiers, underscoring that these troops are considered tools that must justify their existence. Overwatch soldiers are equipped with a mix of human and alien technology, making them far deadlier than unmodified humans. They wear heavy armoured uniforms with a distinct black, grey and blue camouflage pattern. Hard Kevlar plates reinforced with Combine alloys cover their torso and limbs. Their faces are completely hidden behind helmets with built-in respirators and glowing optical sensors. The typical soldier's visor glows cold blue, while certain variants have different colours. Shotgun soldiers sport red optics, Nova Prospect prison guards have yellow, etc. The glow of their eyes is one of the only hints of machinery, a visual reminder that these troopers have been augmented with electronic components in their brains and senses. They speak only in terse, coded phrases over the radio, their voices modulated by vocoders into a robotic register. Hearing the distorted squawk of "Protection Team Alert," "Priority Target," "Freeman" crackling over their comms is enough to set any resistance fighter on edge, Overwatch soldiers wield a formidable arsenal. Standard grunts often carry the OSI-PR, Overwatch Standard Issue Pulse Rifle, a bullpup-style energy rifle that fires armor-piercing plasma bolts and can launch a devastating dark energy orb as secondary fire. Other common weapons include the MP7 submachine gun, used particularly by soldiers deployed in close quarters or by less augmented units, and the SPAS-12 combat shotgun for specialised shotgunner soldiers who excel in breaching and short-range combat. Overwatch units also carry fragmentation grenades, which they throw liberally to flush enemies out of cover. They have access to anti-personnel hopper mines, laser trip mines, and automated sentry turrets for area denial. They are often supported by armoured personnel carriers and hunter-chopper gunships for transport and close air support. In essence, an Overwatch unit is equipped like a high-tech Special Forces squad, but one integrated with alien tech and unburdened by human hesitation. On the battlefield, Overwatch soldiers exhibit disciplined, coordinated tactics that reflect both training and neural conditioning. They move as squads, covering each other and using suppressing fire and grenades tactically. If one soldier is reloading or injured, his squad mate will rise to provide counterfire. They advance methodically, often attempting to flank a pinned enemy, while others keep them busy from the front. Players of Half-Life 2 quickly learn that staying in one spot for too long invites an Overwatch soldier to toss a grenade directly into cover, a calculated attempt to force movement and expose the target. The moment a rebel scrambles out, the squad opens fire in unison. Soldiers will retreat short distances if injured, seeking cover to regroup. They don't panic when taking casualties. Instead, they report the loss and continue the mission. Their communications are constant. They're plugged into the Overwatch information network at all times, feeding tactical data to the Overwatch AI, which in turn updates their orders. This creates a sense of a hive mind. Yet, despite their conditioning, Overwatch troops aren't entirely devoid of human traits. Combine snipers will shout an angry expletive moments before a grenade detonates in their nest. A lone surviving soldier may report in with a tone resembling fear when realizing he is the last one standing. The Combine employs various specialized Overwatch variants. Elites in white armor, armed with the deadly dark energy orb launcher. Shotgun soldiers with red optics for aggressive breach assaults. Nova Prospect guards with suppression weaponry. In Half-Life, Alex, prototypes such as Combine grunts and ordinals appear, showing earlier stages of transhuman refinement. Overwatch soldiers operate with dystopian efficiency, using overwhelming firepower and tactical synergy to dominate urban environments. Yet, their strengths come with predictable patterns that resistance fighters eventually learn to exploit. They instinctively dodge headcrabs, giving rebels a window for attack. They flee from live grenades, providing opportunities to force them from cover, and they struggle with battlefield variables outside their programming, such as Gordon Freeman commanding antlions with pheromones, a tactic that momentarily disrupted their coordination. Despite these vulnerabilities, Overwatch soldiers remain the Combine's most fearsome infantry, engineered fighters who combine human adaptability with institutionalized ruthlessness, serving as the relentless blade of the Combine's occupation. When infantry alone won't do, the Combine brings in its synth war machines, terrifying hybrids of alien biology and machinery that provide heavy firepower and support. The most fearsome of these is the Strider, a towering tripod that serves as mobile artillery and tank in one. Standing roughly 15 meters tall on 3 spindly legs, a Strider can lope over wreckage and streets alike, using the height to its advantage. Its main weapon, a pulse cannon, delivers devastating blasts capable of blowing apart vehicles or buildings in a single hit. Striders were pivotal during major battles, like the City 17 uprising, where they strode through city blocks, systematically demolishing rebel strongpoints with each thunderous shot. To complement Striders, the Combine deploys Combine gunships, armoured, chopper-like alien aircraft, Gunships swoop through the sky and strafe targets with rapid-fire plasma volleys, flushing rebels out of cover and destroying vehicles from above. Heavily plated, they require multiple rocket hits to bring down, making them a persistent threat until a skilled rebel can land the killing blow. For fast attack and skirmish roles, the Combine introduced the Hunter. First seen in Episode 2, Hunters are much smaller tripodal synths, about the size of a large horse, but extremely agile and relentless. They hunt in packs, often accompanying striders or leading the vanguard of an assault. Hunters communicate with shrill trills as they coordinate flanking maneuvers. Armed with explosive flechette rounds, a pair of hunters can clear a building. They fire darts that embed in walls and bodies, then detonate seconds later, eliminating anyone hiding within. Because of their speed and compact size, hunters can pursue enemies into places a strider cannot go. Indoors, dense woods, making them ideal for tracking down guerrillas who think they've found refuge. The sight of these chrome blue creatures loping at high speed, and the sound of their shrieking heralds a new level of terror on the battlefield. The Combine arsenal also includes various autonomous weapons and deployed creatures. They fortify areas with automated turrets and field mines to deny access, from spring-loaded hopper mines that leap up and explode, to roving roller mines that chase and electrify intruders. Small flying manhacks, basically hovering blades, are released in urban close quarters to cut down or flush out hidden foes. In one of their most infamous tactics, the Combine use headcrab artillery as a bioweapon. They lob encapsulated headcrabs into enemy zones to sow terror and chaos among rebels. Ravenholm's fate stands as a grim warning. Once a resistance-friendly town, it was bombarded with headcrab shells and overnight transformed into a zombie-infested nightmare. All these assets, from the giant strider to the swarming manhack, are integrated into Combine strategy. Whenever the Combine faces stiff resistance, they escalate by adding these wildcard elements to crush morale and ensure that no defensive position is truly safe from the Union's reach. Not all of the Combine's methods are overt brute force. Some are insidious, targeting the very essence of their enemies. Two such elements are the Stalkers and the Advisors, which represent the extremes of the Combine's approach to subjugation and control. Stalkers are the twisted husks of humans who defied the Combine, victims of the most brutal fate the regime offers. Through horrific surgical mutilation, captured dissidents are stripped of their limbs, blinded, and outfitted with cybernetic implants, effectively lobotomizing them. What remains is a thin, pale cyborg slave, barely recognizable as human, that carries out menial and hazardous tasks for the Combine. Stalkers shuffle through the bowels of citadels and facilities, welding machinery, maintaining reactors, laying cables, performing drudge work too dangerous or delicate for normal soldiers. They have no mind of their own and respond only to Combine commands. In Episode 1, Gordon and Alex witnessed Stalkers labouring to destabilise the Citadel's core, heedless of the deadly radiation and explosions around them. Although Stalkers are not combat units, they're unarmed aside from built-in tools like laser cutters. They can be a threat in close quarters simply because they will block or interfere with intruders without any regard for self-preservation. More importantly, they are a psychological weapon. To see a Stalker, to recognise the tattered remnants of a person who might have been your ally or loved one, is to understand the utter horror of what the Combine does to those who resist. On the opposite end of the spectrum are the Combine Advisors, who are the masterminds of the entire occupation. Advisors are large, grub-like alien overlords, the highest-ranking Combine beings on Earth, to whom even Dr. Breen answered in the chain of command. They usually remain behind the scenes, nestled in life support pods within citadels, and communicate their orders through telepathic links or the Overwatch system. An advisor is physically feeble, a slug-like body with vestigial limbs, but it possesses immense psychic and telekinetic abilities. It can paralyze a human with a thought, hurl heavy objects effortlessly, and use a protruding proboscis to extract information, or kill outright by impaling a victim's neck. In Episode 2, one advisor demonstrated these powers firsthand, telekinetically immobilizing Alex and Gordon and then gruesomely murdering Eli Vance in a matter of seconds. Advisors prefer not to expose themselves, but if cornered, they can defend themselves viciously. Their other weakness is physical vulnerability. Outside their protective pods or armored transport, advisors can be injured or killed by conventional weapons, as they have little natural armor or agility. After the fall of the Citadel and the death of Breen, advisors took direct control of Combine operations on Earth. They coordinated a series of last-ditch efforts to regain supremacy, from detonating the Citadel's core to send a distress superportal, to personally directing the hunt for the Resistance's leaders, to unleashing the full-force assault on White Forest. These moves showed the advisors' strategic importance. Once they stepped in, the Combine nearly succeeded in their aim to reconnect with their overworld. But the Resistance sabotaged these plans. The Rebel rocket launch closed the superportal, cutting off Combine reinforcements, and Rebel teams even tracked down escaping advisor pods. With their plans foiled, the surviving advisors found themselves stranded on Earth, vulnerable for the first time. Still, they inflicted terrible losses in their desperation, as Eli's death attests. Above all else, Stalkers and advisors represent the grim bookends of Combine subjugation. One reduces individuals to mindless drones, and the other is the cold, calculating intelligence that orchestrates planet-wide tyranny. The Combine's approach to warfare relies on speed, overwhelming force, and control, ideally preventing battles before they even begin. Their initial invasion of Earth exemplified this, a lightning strike of portal-spawned forces that defeated all human armies in 7 hours. Once in power, the Combine maintained control not through continuous battles, but through oppression, quashing potential resistance via constant surveillance, intimidation, and surgical strikes. Their doctrine is to preempt and intimidate rather than engage in drawn-out conflicts. However, when full-scale fighting is unavoidable, the Combine escalates through well-defined phases. They start with containment, sealing off the area and deploying local forces, civil protection or small Overwatch teams to contain the disturbance. If that fails, they escalate to search and destroy missions. Dedicated Overwatch squads move in to eliminate insurgents with extreme prejudice. For larger rebellions or entrenched enemies, the Combine brings in heavy support: striders, hunters, gunships, dropships, effectively throwing combined arms at the problem until the opposition is annihilated. Finally, if an area cannot be recaptured, the Combine employs scorched earth tactics. A vivid example is the shelling of Ravenholm with headcrab canisters. Rather than suffer a protracted fight or leave a base for rebels, they wiped the town off the map in a single horrifying strike. Similarly, the Combine were willing to blow up their own citadel, and City 17 with it, as a last resort to deny victory to the Resistance. Throughout any engagement, they leveraged psychological warfare, from the booming voice of Breen or the Overwatch dispatcher spreading propaganda and fear, to the terrifying sight of a dozen synths marching in. The goal is to break the will of the enemy at every step, making resistance seem hopeless. Yet, as events have shown, the Combine's dominance in open combat is not absolute. In the City 17 uprising, resistance fighters armed with scavenged Combine weapons managed to hold portions of the city for a time, even destroying key Combine defences. And at White Forest, the Combine's massive onslaught, throwing their remaining striders and hunters at the Resistance's last base, was soundly defeated by the rebels. The Resistance's preparation and ingenuity, like the use of novel Magnuson devices to dispatch striders, exploited the Combine's reliance on brute force, turning it against them. These battles revealed a crucial fact: if the Combine cannot crush opposition immediately and decisively, their effectiveness drops. They are not built for prolonged, casualty-heavy wars of attrition. Each day a conflict drags on. The Resistance finds new ways to adapt, and the Combine finds their options dwindling. Thus, while the Combine's strategy in open combat is terrifyingly effective at first strike, it has critical weaknesses that can, and have, been used against them. The Combine's rigid hierarchy means their forces are heavily dependent on orders from above. Disrupting that chain of command can sow chaos. When the Citadel's communication and teleport hub was destroyed, Combine troops on Earth were suddenly cut off from reinforcements and direction. The Resistance exploits this by targeting command infrastructure, like disabling Overwatch communication relays, and even assassinating key figures, such as advisors. Remove the Overseer, and many Combine units become far less coordinated, giving rebels openings to strike or escape. Combine units tend to attack head-on and by the book. Their transhuman soldiers exhibit relentless aggression but poor adaptability, often charging straight into ambushes or mines without deviation. Resistance fighters have learned to capitalize on this inflexibility. They set traps, use decoys, and fight asymmetrically, forcing the Combine into scenarios they're not programmed to handle. For example, rebels might bait Overwatch squads into a narrow alley rigged with explosives. The Combine, confident and single-minded, will pursue and suffer heavy losses. In essence, human unpredictability and guerrilla strategy consistently undermine the Combine's clockwork battle plans. The Combine's greatest advantage was the assumption of unlimited backup, an assumption shattered when the Resistance severed their portal access. Now, every dropship or synth the Combine loses is one fewer in their arsenal. In one instance, Alex Vance derailed a high-speed Combine prisoner train. The crash not only rescued her father, but also destroyed a significant load of Combine supplies, and even killed several advisors that were aboard, an unexpected blow to the Combine's leadership. The Resistance capitalizes on these limits by aggressively targeting high-value assets. They develop tactics and weapons to quickly eliminate the Combine's most powerful units, the jury-rigged Magnuson device being a prime example for Striders, and sabotage supply lines whenever possible. By forcing the Combine into a war of attrition, something the occupiers never planned to fight, the Resistance steadily erodes their enemy's military advantage. Perhaps the Combine's most significant weakness is their dismissal of the very people they subjugated. They treated humanity as a minor obstacle, but human ingenuity and courage proved otherwise. The Combine never expected, for example, that a scientist with a gravity gun would turn their own minds and roller minds against them, or that rebels would find ways to control local aliens, like antlions, to use as shock troops. Every time the Resistance did something unconventional, the Combine were wrong-footed. Moreover, the Combine failed to anticipate the alliance between humans and Vortigons. Once slaves to the Combine's will, these aliens turned on their former masters with a vengeance. Vortigaunt fighters have unique abilities, from healing allies to literally hunting down hidden advisors via psychic senses, nullifying some of the Combine's biggest threats. Even within the Combine's human collaborators, there were turncoats, individuals like Barney Calhoun, undercover as a CP officer, or Dr. Mossman, a double agent, who fed the Resistance vital information. Each betrayal from within, and each clever rebel gambit struck at weaknesses the Combine didn't even realize they had. By undervaluing primitive human creativity and loyalty, the Combine left themselves exposed to it. As seen across the events of Half-Life 2 and its sequels, these weaknesses led to cascading failures for the Combine: the Citadel's destruction, the closure of their super portal, and the crumbling of their grip on Earth. The Resistance's blend of daring and pragmatism shows that even a universe-spanning empire can be outmaneuvered. Humanity, with help from its alien allies, has exposed the chinks in the Combine's armor. The fight is not over, but for the first time, the seemingly invincible Combine have been put on the defensive, a testament to the power of resilient, resourceful people determined to reclaim their world.